They've been rolling it out for quite some time.
It's 6 o'clock. I will call our meeting to order and start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do all please.
Brian Rogerson,
Here.
Kevin Kitty,
Here.
Alan Schneider,
Here.
Tom Sexton,
Here.
Lois Schneider, here, Kevin Betts.
Here. Right, we have quorum, so we approval of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
Also, yeah.
By Sexton, second by Rogerson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Let's go back.
What was that?
Let's see. There was a girl.
Literally all that was on. Okay, the agenda is approved. Kevin is going to go on, we'll leave one for any stuff.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay. Any discussion on the consent agenda? None, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. Next up is our public forum. Anyone wishing to speak in public forum this evening? All right, next up is the city engineer's report. Running of the year.
No, Allison, you too.
No, it's something that's usually.
Yep.
I'm Allison Wyatt now with Axiom. I'm usually on site in some of the construction sites. I'm here for the next thing.
How
Hello.
you doing?
Good, how are you? So the wellness center, the work session took place on October 27th. And Axiom met with Agent Buska to discuss stormwater calculations. I know Cherry Lane was kind of the two more important items tonight to consider. Resolution to approve change order number 3 and consider resolution to approve pay application number 4. I don't know if you guys had time to read the memo provided by Brian Milk about the watering. He had extensive conversations with Stevens and Jones Contracting about the extra water items and has recommended that that additional $2,000 is good to approve. With the results we got with how much faster the site was stabilized and the grass growth we got compared to other jobs.
Now, our question tonight was just about the water, wasn't it?
So,
And it's kind of like in their description, they just may be a little lazy, they don't want to hook up to a hydrant, so.
And I don't think I know that was asked. I don't believe
It was.
an
in-
official answer was ever provided.
really contract though is based off of number of trips and there wasn't a component for actual water usage. So based off of that, they have choice of whether they get water from the city and they pay for it or they take it in from wherever they went at their choice. And that's how it might come from Brian.
Right, thanks.
So they're saying the water was included in their trip.
Correct.
Well, let's say the grass does look good up there, yeah, I understand. It's. You like it along.
Hall Park, we're finishing up the surfacing and fencing, getting a couple of those items cleaned up. They've switched out an intake down there to a beehive intake. They've completed that work and they took the extra intake to the city shop. You see, you guys have it, 1 or 2, thing.
Allison, I sent a question back over to Brian about animal courts. So I think for the most part, like when we were on site, we moved a couple spots that maybe still didn't get touched up by tennis surfacing. But the fencing, although it was originally specified in the contract to be powder coated, which is what they installed, the condition was not, I guess, would not be standards in this case. So the remediation that they were, I guess, offered was they painted them to try to improve the aesthetics of it, but we're still left with the I guess, original posts that were not in great condition,
Right.
which potentially impacts the durability and should be reflected in, I guess, renegotiation of pricing. Have you guys been able to have any conversation with Dean or, I guess, the general about the pinnacle on?
So I reached out to DNN with the general on
Yeah.
that email, because I know they went out and did some work. I know some of the top rail, but then their rail pieces were all together replaced. But I reached out again asking if they could provide me a time they're gonna be down here to touch up again, or if they wanna provide a cost reduction, but I haven't heard back on that. either.
Still like, remain that like, they still, regardless of touching it up, we still have ended up with a product that's not what was specified, despite their remediation. Best efforts. Spray painting is not equivalent to powder coating,
Right,
and therefore we should be compensated or make adjustments to the. To that. I mean, the other alternative would be that they would remove the posts to replace them, which would not be. I'm assuming that's on
Right.
the side that would.
and I just
not-
have to double check what an acceptable remediation is, if the spray paint is technically an acceptable remediation, I just have to double check what those are too.
We
But again,
have to be aware of what it is.
DNM, because I feel like originally they were really enthusiastic about fixing the situation, so I'm hoping to hear back something from them.
Hopefully they do something, because spray painting is not powder coated.
Right, right,
As always, the standards that we adhere to, whatever it's specified, I mean, we have contractually obligated to meet those, so we understand that part of it.
but that's still out there for pickleball courts.
On the wall court. I don't know who's the target irrigation, so. They've got. That's something to look at, right?
And they have a meter on it.
Well, no, that's not a problem. They want to keep an eye on the deck. They have a hose up that higher than the very back.
Right, I don't think they should be out there much longer, but I'll double check with them on how their sprinklers are supposed to be.
Actually, probably when they're done at the end of the day, whenever the watering, you should probably use them from the air. I know the hose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just end the watering, I know, because then that will, I just am worried. I can definitely ask them, I'm just worried that they're gonna start charging every day for a trip, we're gonna eat through our trips. But again, I think that maybe the sprinkler should be close to done, but I'll double check. I've already had it. Right. And then downtown revitalization, we didn't have much, there was a progress meeting last Tuesday.
We should have there's some things outstanding on, the contractors and that they need to get to, COG for billing purposes for the grant. And then will be a project update with the timeline with the next pay application. Admittedly, things do seem to be behind schedule, and there's going to need to be some conversation with the contractor on what steps they're going to do to, I don't know, at least give the building owners a realistic update on when things will occur. So we did talk with the contractor and the parties meeting about that, but that should be reflected in their pay application with the updated timeline of what they're going to be doing there. But was most of that, we'll have more information on that when that packet of information comes, and we should have that for our second meeting this month. But that would be all the downtown revitalization stuff.
You talking about percentage that's done, or did they get that?
Yeah, the percentage, so they're hoping with this original substantial completion of this project, I think it was like February or March of next year. Right now, our total bill percentage is like 15-20%, somewhere around there. Reasonably, they expect, half of our time has been expired, about half of our, if we build half of it out. So we're going to look at rescheduling our, there's like a walkthrough we do with, IUDA for the project, and then there's a public hearing we have to do on the project, but because of the completion, they're not as far as what we originally had hoped at this point. We're gonna have to push that back and then make sure that I guess the time frame that they're giving us is reasonable, because the last couple months have been primarily waiting for materials. I've been doing some masonry work downtown, but for the most part, there hasn't been a whole lot of windows being installed or doors, or there's roofs that could have still been done. So there's some things like that need to be ironed out with the contractor before they get paid. So,
Cause we're at 17% all the time.
yeah,
I remember hearing that, but the other thing is, like those materials. I mean, I get it if they were doing bridges, even didn't have what they needed, but door and windows should not be, but they're like.
all of, so unfortunately, a lot of the stuff, the windows, a lot of it is custom dimensions. With being old buildings, it's not like you can just go to a parts, I mean, like Lowe's or Menards and pick up the windows. So they have to go there and custom measure all of them. So
But I mean, that could have been done.
absolutely, that's part of the.
Or at the beginning, when that meeting is no different than what it is now. So I'm just saying some of that.
Lois, those exact points were brought up at the meeting with the contractor, so. You,
Yeah, I-
good.
That's kind of.
Yeah, that's what we told, like, if there's anything we need to do right now, next step priorities would be getting all of your, measurements done, order all your materials, and then things that we don't need to wait, like there's order of operations doesn't really matter. Focusing on some of those things, knocking them out so we can get progress done too, because it's also owners at this point have paid roughly half of their outstanding cost for it, and they're not seeing half of the work complete yet, so I think that would be a concern from their part, which is fully warranted, so they ultimately just want to make sure that they have the expectations that everyone has is realistic, and despite a few, something emergency coming up, we can hopefully stay on kind of hit the big milestones, because that has not been happening.
I get that you're in charge of it, and also I see that is it. We'll give them a push if they have to come in.
I mean, they're not being-
Like this. Yeah, there's one thing, I think that it's so much good work. But, I mean, what's the excuse? I mean, like I said, brick is one thing, trying to match that. And you maybe don't know that, so you broke some out and need them, but a lot of the other stuff. There's no excuse for, figuring out that they're getting it done with, so.
I think at this point, like during the progress meeting, we issued this question notification they need to meet, and I can see we're going to bring the application documents that there's something they need to submit to EasyCog for the grant. There are obviously some time frame or timelines that they need to submit to us. The application that those things need to, get to snuff before to get paid. Depending on what that looks like, there could be some work between, so Martin Gardner is the one that's overseeing the construction of the project itself. Some conversation between Martin Gardner, contractor, and potentially our city attorney on what does, what do we have available to us to make sure that they're continuing to make progress, and if they don't, what options do we have? But right now, we're waiting on the updated timeline there in the application, that stuff. So, like I said, next meeting you should have no information for that.
That's just real deal. That would have been nice to have done by spring when it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
But it is what it is, I think.
I think that's the point, at this point, like, be realistic, because people have businesses involved with these. People are planning their lives around it, so just being realistic as possible with our estimates and not giving, rosy predictions on what that would look like, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I mean, all that is fine. I'm really hoping that they're not gonna count, are we pausing through the winter?
I mean, not that I know, there's certainly
And
there's
I
stuff.
don't wanna see any change orders for protecting the front of these buildings when they're changing windows up. That's on them.
That's fair.
And the contractors can still on multiple occasions to remove their equipment from Highway 22
Mhm.
in the evenings and over the weekends, right?
Yes, as well as shutting the lights off or turn the power off when they're, we've had multiple instances in the morning where it's still on hand and they're not in town, where it just was left on, so.
Is that their dumpster?
Yeah,
One of the
big one there.
things is way. To traffic too, if you're meeting somebody. I realize that they said that the other one, it takes more space, and but I actually know that it's. In a good spot on.
You do one that's just a little shorter.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Right. Any other questions on the engineering report?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Allison. So let's go ahead and discuss the resolution where it should move the monitoring. A little bit of discussion is any have any more questions. So,
Now, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-75. Approve change order number 3 with Jones Contracting Corporation and the additional amount of $2,000 in water and
I'll second.
any additional discussion? And now we'll take a waiting order for that. Rogerson. Aye. Keating. Second.
Yes.
Schneider. And Ellis. Aye. If it's approved. All pages back every,
The bulk of the application is this change order for $2,000 in there.
so this is the application number 4. Any questions or comments on that?
For $3,501.94. Leave us with, after this retainage. That would-
I'll make a motion for resolution 2025-76, the application of the Board of Jones Contracting. For work completed on maturing lane extension project in the amount of $3,501.94.
Second. Any additional discussion? If not, we can vote on that as well. Mills. Aye. Schneider.
Aye.
Sexton. Aye. Keating. Rogers. Aye.
I also assume we would be probably ready next council meeting for final acceptance to close out.
Yes, I believe so. I'll double check the code now. But yeah, I have to share it all in there. So that's anything too.
Right. That takes us to city administrator report.
Also, you don't have to stay in longer unless you want to, so.
Okay.
Our colleagues that have more. Happy for you to stay, but you gotta go. So.
Just have a dog.
Right. So, you'll see that this, packet from Art Frederick, was originally supposed to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission after talk with our attorney, and Art Frederick's, team there. This does not meet the definition of a subdivision because as our ordinance defines subdivisions, it is for the transfer, basically, it's transfer ownership is the main piece of it. So in this case, the chunk of land that you'll see as what parcel M is a part of, that was part of a piece of property that is owned by Stump Construction that was, the whole thing was put in the this Mary Jane Stump estate. And because of that, it's conjoined with another property that is within the estate. There is no transfer of ownership that is occurring. So the transfer of ownership, I guess, legal sense would happen before. So it's an entire parcel that was put in the estate, and then a small chunk of it is put in with a new parcel. So there's no, because of that process, it doesn't meet the definition of a minor subdivision, and therefore is not subject to the review process as outlined in our ordinance for subdivisions. So because of that, it would just go before city council's approval or consideration for approval. In this case, it's not changing anything there. This, both of these parcels are outside state limits and are both unzoned according to our zoning map. So because of this, it's a pretty, I guess, clean out here. So
I'll make a motion to approve 2025 -77 review of plat of survey for parcel
that number.
that number and auditor parcel M.
So that would all be combined into one new parcel for taxation purposes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, any discussion?
When you said it's not zoned, is, I mean, is it all considered ag or what? I mean.
So-
It's something.
It's outside city limits, so unless we have zoned, we can, so if it's outside city limits, I don't believe Washington County exercises the zoning. But because of that, so our 2 mile radius allows us to zone specific properties that we choose. So in this case, if there is a property outside city limits that a part of the city's long-term plans is for that area to be potentially housing in the future, we could zone that and enforce zoning on that parcel. But in this case, it is not currently, doesn't have any zoning on it. So it's, for taxation purposes, zoning doesn't matter. It's classification by taxation, which is separate from zoning as a whole. Zoning is just for the enforcement of zoning regulations. In this case, it's unzoned, and therefore we don't currently enforce any specific use on it there.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I will say this one was a good learning opportunity for me and to learn kind of the minute differences between a subdivision, or in this case, it's more of an auditor's plat. And I learned that different cities in Johnson County treat these a little differently than the city of Washington County. So I know it's complex processes like this, like how you learn things. So, but we have another actual subdivision potentially that would come up here in the next few months that is similar, but actually subdivision. So it was good to have two situations side by side.
Well, with that being said, I mean, right now, yeah. If it did, where there's gonna be a couple of houses built, then it would have to come back again, correct?
That'd be a site plan for you
Okay,
guys.
that's what I'm saying, it's,
So the development,
by doing this doesn't,
no,
Yeah, we see.
this is
We
just,
see it.
okay, that's all right, yeah.
this is just for the ownership.
Sure,
I guess switching that. So if there was to be built, it would likely first go to the county. County said, we don't oversee the zoning. You need to, within the 2 mile radius, default to a city of Riverside. It'd reach out the site plan, all right, start that process.
thanks.
Yep. Not on that. All right, so the next thing here, oh, yeah, so I
make a motion.
Yeah, we're gonna come up with Roger said, made motion, seconded by Sexton. Yeah. Let's take a roll call. Robertson.
Aye.
King, Sexton. Schneider. Lewis. Take it.
there you go.
Yes.
So similar to the schedule we had last year, we had the holiday schedule and city council meetings had one sheet. Stephanie took that, and created next year's schedule. So these are the same holidays that we've observed at least since I've been here, they're mentioned in the employee handbook. So we have those shown there. And then, also a city council meeting schedule, that takes those holidays into account. Please note that we also, was in the bottom, the first meeting in January and the last meeting in December were not put on the schedule here as, I don't know, based off of where they fall is, typically we haven't had a ton on there. Not to say that we won't have potentially, like in that first week of January or that first 2 weeks of January, a budget work session, but between holidays there's typically not a lot on the agenda there. So and then we also moved one for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which we've done, I guess last few years here as well. As there's quite a few people who do observe that holiday, and it's fine enough to move it off there. So
You need a motion for this?
yeah, if we could get action just to adopt it would be great.
I make a motion to approve the 2026 meetings and holiday schedule.
Can I just ask, are we planning to have a second meeting in December in 2025?
Right now we have one on the schedule, but I think that's something we can discuss whether or not we need one. It'll be on the 15th, is what we're showing here,
Okay.
which is, I think would be earlier than 2026. Yeah, the 2026 will be the 21st, so it's a lot later. But
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't planning on that. That was gonna be a year with expenses.
Well, I think most of the expenditures would potentially be able to be paid through policy. Unless we do not get some of these. Yes, wrapped up, I think that's an improved projects.
I think that we should go by what's good before us to be done. I mean, I think it's easy to say we're not gonna have it, but then agenda wise, if there's something that we need to do, you know, it's easier to put them on than everything canceled if we don't need them.
I think that's something we could discuss at the next city council meeting. I also have down here further on the agenda to talk about public records training, which potentially would be on that's Tuesday, December 2nd. I'll just move that up real quick. So Tuesday, December 2nd, potentially moving that city council meeting to that day. We looked at doing the open meetings and records training as kind of a work session with as this one time to kind of bring everyone back up to what's training is, and then from there on out, it would be new commission, new elected officials who would take that. But we figured it would be easy for everyone to get together. We do watch the webinar together, and then there's a little certification form you have to fill out the other, so you concluded it. So
I did sign up already, so mine will be done.
okay,
I think mine's the 11.
okay.
This one.
Or does the budget have to be set by the end of March, is that correct?
Yes, yep. So we, depending on publication, times and where we're at with the budget, may need to have a special meeting, but I also haven't gotten too in deep with the budget planning schedule yet to see where that's gonna fall, but
Well, that's what I was wondering if that will be given to us by February 13th. A good start, but you know, that's not true. Maybe it's we can call extra meetings every, because, you know. We're gonna get a little bit of.
it's a little chaotic in March. I'm sorry, we had a motion from you. Yes. Yep. Yep. So like for 2026, the reason why we took off the second meeting center was the 21st, which is a few days before holidays there, and I also know that follow-up on anything after that would be a little I don't know, not much time for follow-up on there, but and I also know anyone's holiday plans, but
They can be changed as we go.
we can always add a meeting or take a meeting away too, but this is just kind of the general expectations of what we generally would be.
Any other questions about that? If not, we have a motion, but I don't remember, and we did not step in.
Awesome.
Right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Two approved.
Next thing, so Friday sent out a copy of the Iowa Downtown Design Guide. I just wanted to bring this up. We don't have to make an motion on it tonight, but as I mentioned in my Friday report, that the Iowa Downtown Design Guide is a set of guidelines, not standards. So essentially, they're recommendations by the state for downtown design, rehab for downtown buildings, maintenance, recommendations, things that are in line with the improvements that we are making to our downtown area. My thought was that this is something we could look at adopting, and especially if city council would like to continue to prioritize downtown investment, making some local grants available to downtown business owners, that we establish some, I guess, in this case, they would be guidelines, but for the case of a grant, give us something that these are the type of projects we're looking for, or the type of rehab that we'd like to see in our community, because I think it's been, I think despite good intent, there have been many cases across the state where a city has a downtown grant program, but doesn't give any really standards for what that work should be. And they end up, the city incentivizes rehab that is, could be residential vinyl siding on a property, or residential door, or things that aren't incongruent with what the best practices of a healthy downtown are. And so this is something to look through. There is, honestly, if you take a couple minutes to scroll through it, you'll see quite a bit in there. But at the end of the day, I think giving people who are wanting to invest money in their property typically do have, they want to do this right, and they want to improve the property for the communities of their own function. And if we can give them a bit of guidance on what our expectations would be, I think that can help not only make better choices when it comes to building rehabilitation, but it can also it gives some standards or guidelines for what are some things that building owners should be looking at for maintenance wise to keep our buildings in good condition. So something to look at, and I think eventually I'd like to bring this back for consideration after everyone's had a chance to look through it. So
Yeah, I started reading through it and I looked at it, I didn't get all the way through it. Thank you for bringing that to us.
That was one of the things that I took back from, I went to it was the Iowa Community Catalyst, it was a Iowa Economic Development Authority downtown, Community Catalyst grant that I went to event for 2 weeks ago at this point. It was a Friday, and it was in order to even do the pre-application, you have to go to one of the events to learn about it. And this is one of the recommendations they had that was aside from this grant of things that they're looking, what are they looking for when it comes to a good project, and something that follows these guidelines is generally accepted as something that is going to be attractive for funding at the state level as well. So, but anyways. Thank you. Any questions on the Iowa Downtown Design Guide? All right. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot for you guys on property nuisance updates. As we talked about last city council meeting, I had Terry add a couple more to the list. They sent notices out. December 1st is still our big first deadline date for property owners. And then on one property, we're still waiting on the sheriff's sale to go through before that process can really kick off. So I think those would be the primary updates there. I know it's not a whole lot, but for those bigger, I mean, the ones we sent out have multiple violations. So having the December 1st deadlines is going to be a good check-in. As far as I know from Terry, he hasn't really heard much from any of the property owners on it. So actually, I think talking to one of them, but met with him on site. But for the most part, I'm not sure what progress has been made yet. So next item I have on you for you guys. I shared it, I think last week. I got notice from the Remote Foundation that they are doing their grant, the 2025 grant awards event. So this would be for the entire year to recognize the recipients of funding, celebrate partners that made all of the work possible. And that will be November 19th at 6:30 p.m. I shared that out with an email, so you would have more information there. But essentially, they're looking for RSVP amount and no low. She said 2. I was wondering if there's anyone else from city council who's wondering, would like to be there. Brian, assuming you're gonna be there, being.
Yeah, I'll be there under their tables.
So I guess I don't think I need to include you in the RSVP if you're.
No, I don't think so,
Yeah.
but I'll stick them with that meeting.
That good for. I plan on being there as well, but. That'll be November 19th at 6:30 p.m. at the casino. As I mentioned a little earlier, there's a public records training that the Iowa Cities is putting on. They do have a few different dates, but I did want to propose December 2nd, which is a Tuesday. It's a 5 to 6:30 p.m. training. And my thought was that we could do it as like a work session style, bring in P&Z and Board of Adjustment there as well. For all who would like to do it. Well, in this case, I think we make it, everyone should be here to be a part of that. I'm gonna be there. I think Stephanie would be part of that as well. But the plan would be, we would move our meeting from December 1st to December 2nd to have following this. I know it makes for maybe a little bit of a long evening, but I figure out of best respect for everyone's weekly schedule and time that we would do the work session and then follow it with a meeting. I did talk to the representative from Iowa Cities. Although they don't need everyone to register if we're doing it that style as a work session. They don't need everyone to schedule. Important thing is all of the attendees following the training that they use the link or the QR code to take the final certification form. So then that can be tracked, and sent to the Iowa Public Information Board for certification. Let's see.
It's 2 hours.
We're showing 5 to 6:30 p.m. So reasonably, if if we needed to take a short break between that, starting at 6:45 or 7. The first meeting in December shouldn't be too long, but
I just recommend whoever in the election, invite them along.
yep,
So you, we probably decide us all about.
yeah, I can do that. Yeah, as long as that date would work.
Yeah, I'm already,
If you're already, I mean, you already.
so don't worry about me.
The more important thing is, this is a training that I think it's probably a good refresher for everyone, as this is a new law, and let's all get caught up, make sure we're doing things best practice, and then moving forward, it can be taken as lawfully determined by the state law as a new elected officials or new appointed members, or kind of as needed there.
My understanding was that you take it as long as your purposes are. Let's see. So if somebody takes it now, not being new elected and re-elected in this cycle, we wouldn't have to take it at that point. It's
Yeah,
like it lasts in perpetuity as long as you don't.
You're-
Yep. Your service.
and to check what the gap is, what allowed between gaps would be. So say if you, I don't know, don't get reelected and you are elected over the next 2-year term, what is it? Are you still, do you need to take it then? I'm assuming you would, but
Yeah, but I give you time.
it's a lapse.
Yeah. Those, I mean, it's still-
Does anyone have any concerns with that? All right. And I think that's something that, say there was someone who is currently on city council and wouldn't get reelected or wouldn't be coming back next term, you probably would have to stay for that training, since given the end of I guess your term would be end of December. So, but we can cross that bridge if that is the case, we come to it. So. Anyways, would that format work for everyone, December 2nd? We went there and had a work session there. Okay. And then I can coordinate with. Yeah, 6:45 start the regular meeting work for everyone. Yeah. Right. And then the last thing I have on my list would be we got renewals for health insurance, and I wanted to we've stayed with the same plan through Allmark, the same 2 plans since I've been here. I wasn't a part of the selection process when we chose that, so I wasn't sure all of that. But Alan and I discussed it, and if we're going to be looking at different coverages too, it'd probably be a good idea to have a couple city council members a part of that conversation. The representative that Southeast Iowa Insurance works with for this, North Risk Partners, I think they're out of their Hiawatha or Cedar Rapids. Anyways, I think they have some availability on Thursday morning. If there is anyone who would be interested in a couple city council members joining for that conversation as we look at a couple different, I guess, what the other available plans are to see what we can get, what's going to be the best. If it's initial no cost and say we get better coverage for our employees, we look at that, or if there's different, then it's better value, something to consider there. But is there anyone who would be interested in being part of that conversation or available?
This Thursday.
I think that's Thursday at 9. Would that will be available for that?
I mean, I can, if you need me to, but.
Two people willing to have whoever each other.
Um, I think I can. I can let you know tomorrow for sure.
Okay.
If you can, let me know.
That's in person
Your
here.
person here at City Hall, yep. Maybe probably the best in person to just, I'm sure he's gonna bring coverage comparisons and wanna show us kind of what we're looking at, so. The thought was we'd have a couple of city council members who were part of that conversation before it got brought back to city council, so. I think we should be able to, once we look at coverages, I have a spreadsheet where I do a cost comparison to figure out kind of what our and then cost is gonna be for both employee and employer side. We can put in there to figure out what the actual cost impacts were gonna be, so. But. That will be. It.
Okay, so this thing from our Brian and
Lois,
so we have that Thursday then.
nothing.
I am working. There's a lot of work else.
That doesn't work out, I'd like you to schedule it. Anytime we're evaluating benefits, I think it should be driven by the city council.
If we can't get two people, please let me know, because I think they can be a little flexible on trying to find a date that would work for us there. More important thing is that we're able to make the information, be able to get it in a digestible format and make a decision for the rules. If you need to follow with me later this evening or in the morning or something like that. I can do that.
After this, I'll go grab my work computer and I'll bring that in and I'll let you know that. Okay.
Lois with Thursday at 9 before you.
Yeah.
Okay, if it doesn't
I'll
work,
let you know if it was too, this month.
I'll grab it right now.
that's fine, perfect. Unless scheduling changes there, we'll just plan on Lois and Ryan being able to be a part of that conversation and finding a date that works, and then we'll bring that back to the council. Any questions there? I think that would hit my list for now. Oh, go vote tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we have city hall open.
7 p.m. to 8. And they'll be here before that and after that for
What do you got?
Be here at 6 a.m. 6 a.m.
6 to 9. 7 be here in the morning.
I'll see you sometime around 7. I mean, not rush hour, but.
Jim before that.
There's nothing else, I'll open up the closing comments again.
I haven't had any for a while, so I've got 3 things I'd like to mention if we can, whether we're discussing or not. One is, we had a citizen take it upon himself to go mow the corner of 4th Street and Ellis Street. I won't use some of his colorful language as to why he did it, but he did a nice service. He was very angry that the city was not maintaining city property when it's basically a vacant property. Told him I agreed with him, and I think we should be doing stuff like that when it occurs. But he took it upon himself and did it because he wanted to see it cleaned up. So he gave permission to use his name, but I don't know whether to be true or not. Other than a citizen did a nice thing because they were tired of looking at the mess. But he was concerned with city property and maybe city should have been helping take care of it. So that's for anybody's discussion.
Thank you, get me for that.
Yeah, well, I think he did a very nice job. He's used his equipment pretty hard.
I was gonna say, let's shove some stuff buried in that yard.
I watched him pour it out to get it cleaned up to where he's got it to now, so. If you want to know who, I can tell you later. Another thing that I keep getting once in a while from people in town is in town, and we're going to go back to looking for grants for homeowners improvement that used to be done. You know, you could apply for money that the city had due to wanting to improve that property. I thought at this point, possibly it could tie into, we're trying to do nuisance items and improve the town. If some people actually got to where they cleaned their property up, and maybe wanted to go a little farther, it could be an avenue to help them incentive to go farther. So anybody have any discussion on that, you can then get any time.
It's a good idea. I will say there are some programs that ECOG, East Central Iowa Council of Government has, albeit they're all income qualified, as most of those housing assistant type of grants are. And I guess beyond that, I had to look at the history of what we've done in the past. I guess I've read about things that we've done in the past as well, but I'm not quite sure like the specifics of how they're administered or what the purpose of it was.
I don't know how it worked before, but it would be the consensus of the council wanting to do something like that. So how it plays in, I think it is something that would be well worth looking into. That could be a booster for the community and citizens. So something to look at.
Yeah, that's that.
Budget times.
That'd be great. The last thing probably is I watch Clifford a lot, and when the sheriff shows up, people behave themselves. Weird. So nowadays, unless the sheriff's going to show up to school every day forever, we need to look at some different options, whether it be digital signs, cameras, speed bumps. You may control speed with some of those. The stop signs could be a different issue. I don't know, but I think the discussion needs to happen on before. There's a lot of cars parked up there, anywhere from some of the residential up both streets. You have two intersections, confusion. Nobody wants to sit there very long, so impatience, it looks like, starts to grow on folks. Before a kid goes somewhere and gets bumped, hit, run over, sure would be nice to put some efforts toward the new area, the new street. Whether the school has all their signs of in, out, word park, not park. Has any of that been addressed lately, or have they said anything?
No, but Mike did stop in this morning and talk to him about the speed complaints up there. And same thing with what you're telling, assuming you guys talk quite a bit about, but so I did look into the Iowa DOT's they call it speed feedback sign. So I was I guess thinking you could use them anywhere, but it makes sense that they'd only want to put this on highway entrances. So they right now we have both of those covered, so we wouldn't be eligible for this grant. So unless we found another funding option, it would be straight from I guess our city budget. And you could use road use funds for something like this. I had to get quotes on what it would be to install like a speed feedback sign or what the other improvements would be. But as a whole, I think it is important to know like, we need to look at where are we seeing issues, or where is the where are areas of focus. We do have only a set amount of resources. In some cases, like, are there things we can do to deter speeding or traffic violation, thing like that? Absolutely. I mean, look at what the cost of that would be. But it's always important to remember too, is like, what is our ability to control the situation, in the sense of, if people are speeding, is that how much of that is a personal choice and how much of it is an unawareness of how fast they're going? Wider streets can feel safer to drive faster on. If, you know, a speed feedback sign or a speed bump could be a good awareness tool to bring focus back to that. But at the same time, you're always going to have a certain amount of people who are going to run stop signs, they're going to speed. And that's where our, you know, Washington County Sheriff's Department with their enforcement efforts would come into play there. But if additional, you know, like speed feedback signs or speed bumps are items we'd like to look at on Clepper, that's something we can certainly do. At this point, I'd be open to direction from city council if that's something you guys would like to see done and get quotes for those type of options. I think speed feedback would probably be the easiest, but also would be the most ongoing cost as well. But I don't know, I think for the most part, it seems like it's mostly parents, it's based off of the time of day. You're seeing the issues that parents would want to be traveling safe around school area. And it's more of, sure, people are busy and they're have a lot going on in their lives. They're trying to get somewhere or go home, and bring a little awareness to where they're at and how fast they're going would hopefully change the behavior.
I just don't want it to get forgotten. I think something needs to get done up there. And, you know, you've seen speed bump on Shetland Street. At least when you're doing the speed bump, you slow down. You might speed up again afterwards, but on Cleffer, there were actually to be two. You're gonna have a hard time finding much ground to do much speeding or abuse your car. It's your choice. But I just don't want it to get forgotten. I want to see us do something about it soon.
And I think since we have a street in, unless you've been up there, you know, I don't know who we have maybe, kind of see where we enter, might go out and something axiom, or they have somebody within. I'm just saying that people are parking up, Galilee too, and people coming through that line of the bus. It's something I think has to be evaluated to see what is better and safer with speed and with kids. You know, the traffic guards do very well, but
It's only during.
I didn't want them all to get the court run over or something. I did, that was the first report or something. So, I mean, I'm just saying that that's how close these cars are coming. I mean, there was something about that. So, you know, whether it would work with the school, you know, and have somebody from each, or, you know, like I said, somebody professional that can make sure we're doing the best we can, because I'm like Kevin, I don't want to see either the crossing guard or a kid or anybody, you know, get hurt before we do something, because we put all the money into that road, but I don't think it's being used, that area is being used to the best of the ability.
I think like it seems like I think this is a place where I think post signage or like those, as I mentioned earlier, would probably be the next escalation. And I don't know, it's a
Speed warnings.
rated speed. So like the speed feedback sound, we have one over by Chetland where it goes into the school where it tells you your speed. I think that would probably be one tool to look at in there.
We're thinking about that. Maybe check with the sheriff's office because they have a trailer.
Yeah.
That's what I.
There just to see if
The other thing, yeah, the winterized that, according to Chad, when I talked, well, to now, I talked to him last. But the other thing, they have that, this, what they call it, Jared always refers to it as the black box, where you can post that there to get traffic data of speed and things like that. And that might be able to tell us, I'm assuming it's gonna be a couple times a day, we're gonna be able to see that going to school and coming home from work or around picking up school kids. But if that can at least tell us like location along there where it would be most beneficial to get that awareness to people to slow down, that might help us with the placement of whatever traffic remediation to be, whether it be signage or speed bumps along there.
Because this is Devon's great big thing work.
Yeah, it's still tight. Be nice if it was still a little bit. I don't know if it records or not, it just tells you.
It gives the instantaneous feedback.
It's like the ones on Highway 22 and stuff, and they're capable of recording.
So, I'm not sure on that. These, as far as I know, they're traffic wardens, not traffic enforcers in that sense.
This is the sheriff's department, stopping for environment.
I don't know.
I mean, it's gonna be really hard to get tickets going and the communication going through the parents that, dang, we got a ticket the other day. Because they see the sheriff's car sitting anywhere up around there, and all of a sudden people. So, yes, I'm glad they're going up and looking and seeing it, and maybe they notice and understand that there are issues. Go there and let Mark sometime and sit or somebody's driveway and see what. So try to get them to, that tends to be around 38. Yeah, if they want their own data, you know.
Let's put this here in this order. Chat, it's not, but it's that we can discuss what is here next time.
That'd be great. Okay. I just have one more request.
Go for it.
I'm just curious because there's so much discussion about Riverside's population. What are we? Anywhere from 104 to 165, I have heard. Is this go by water bills? How many do we send out a month or?
Population, so 1,060, I think is what it was in the 2020 census. We haven't obviously done a census in Riverside since then. I would probably lean towards looking at those like federal government based population count like data when it comes out. I'll be honest with you, having population isn't really a super beneficial metric as it's only, you think about one of the things that describe a community, population's only one aspect of that, whether we're 1,060 or 1,100. It doesn't really change anything. I mean, when you're looking at the signs of vitality for a community, there's a lot of indicators that all describe the situation. No individual metric can tell the entire story. You have to look at them as a whole comprehensively. So I don't think I'm not answering your question, but also I don't have a more up-to-date metric than census 2020.
I hear, you know, the more or the bigger your population, the more revenue you incur. So it's kind of like, where do we keep any kind of record of, you know, property taxes to whatever?
So there's just if you're looking at revenue for the city, population is not an indicator of that. Property values, that's I can I can send you my thesis paper if you'd like to learn about property taxes. But the main indicators you're looking at are your property valuations, your rollback, which is determined by the state, and that determines what taxable valuations are, your tax rate, and then
Number of households.
no, I mean, we're looking at prop taxes individually. Yeah, your tax rate and your valuation and all that are gonna be your three main pieces there. Generally, as value, we only have so much money, it's a finite resource. Unless we annex more, or improvements are made, you're only gonna see, valuation go up. Yeah.
There are some people that want to know and understand that better than I do. I am on the simplistic end of whatever, but all that stuff is way over my head, like I've learned about some other stuff. So it was just a question.
Maybe this would be we're not making any promises. I'll just say this, I'm just throwing ideas up there. If there are like topics around the government that, if we wanted to do an event every once in a while, or if you wanted me to talk about it, or we can bring in someone else to talk about an issue, then I would be, open to talking about that. As finding ways to
So you want people to come down, express interest and see if you get enough to do something like that?
I mean, when I will say, when I was in my previous job in Wise County, monthly I travel around the county, different communities, and did an event called Coffee with Cole, where I basically talked about what's going on around the county, opportunities that are coming up, answering questions, and just trying to like connect people with information and resources. And although I will say I don't necessarily on a day-to-day have the time to do that all the time, if it's something where there was a genuine, there's people who want to learn about something and I can give them resources to help them make better connections between what's going on here in City Hall and in the community and all how it all works together, be happy to, help report that. And because I think as a whole democracy, the more educated participants we have, the better outcomes we can hope to have. And it's only good for our community that people understand how things work. So,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I don't think.
Good questions, thank Kevin.
I can take the other thing for a security line, I would imagine out at Dollar General, have you heard, are they?
Yeah, so we're going
Getting close to that? or-
DOT right with permits, what we're standing right now. So once the DOT approves it, they'll be able to get out there and install it. So,
And the other thing, cool, go ahead.
oh, is it? All of the other information's been done. So the pole's been selected, light fixture's been selected, location's been selected. That location may need to move depending on the DOT, where they end up saying, hey, we'll allow it here, but not here. We'll have to kind of play along with them on that, but that's what's outstanding right now.
Okay, the only other thing, we're out on, parking for the,
I have an email from me first, but I didn't get to it. So Copper Creek owners did purchase the lot next to it. Alan and I have been talking about the participation there. I drafted a couple different options there. I think at this point, it seems like no parking throughout the entire thing may end up being the solution we go after. We would have to make, I guess we'd have to amend our parking ordinance, and then change signage and then that's it. So
It's not working today, isn't it?
Yeah, they said they have a variance that have this.
it would be the
I gave them,
Well, to do it.
okay, to do it. There's no-
just say no parking.
So I, but Morgan saying, if you look at it, already, Marty.
solar panels, the parking for the other.
Let's get the next one. Before you talk to him. This is what we're gonna, it's being parking right now. So I gotta get over here.
Two. Double parking and.
They know that parking is now a temporary thing, that this is not something that they're guaranteed or is a permanent fixture right now. And especially as, all the Army park's gonna be hopefully done here, full on and operational next year, and
Yeah.
more traffic through them, so.
More. Campers and, charts phone and campers. and stuff. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Like
That privacy fence that went on the Copper Creek and, developments, whose was that?
So, that's Copper Creek, so there, yeah.
Fence.
Yep, so they had a fence permit that they pulled for that, and Terry and I looked at it. And, originally it was part of the site plan for, like Lombard's RV park out there. But based off of the more immediate need for, Copper Creek, they ended up, between the two parties, worked it out that they're gonna put the fence on Matt Kelly Wood's side, for Copper Creek there. And then Mike will be putting in trees on his side buffer there, so I think they're able to come together to an agreement on what we can do, so they're gonna be neighbors, they'll have to work together.
I got one thing, I drove down to just check on the progress of the pickleball courts, I did see the whole sprinkler setup they got down there for water. Why can't we do something like that with our projects that we're doing, instead of hauling the truckloads and spraying it, soaking the hell out of it one time and taking off, and not having this sprinkler system keeping it steady soaking down.
Tom, I've been with it, might have been a better question while Allison was here. I see your point, especially if we're looking at, I don't know, I mean, if we're paying a trip charge where they have to source their water, whether you're getting it from city hydrant, whether they're metering, and then they're getting, we're gonna build them for, or they just hook up directly to a city hydrant and water. It ultimately, is I think two different approaches. I would, I think that's probably a better question for Brian to be able to ask on the methodology behind it, and what the difference is in this project, the other one. I don't know. I think part of it would probably go into proximity to available, like, city water. In this case, like, we're not gonna just have a hydrant, a fire hydrant turned on all the time with hoses off of it. But in this case, we have a garden hydrant out there where it's a lot easier to be able to use for this sort of application. I don't know if that had something to do with this, part of it, but, so that's probably a Brian question. I see where you're coming from, but
When they come water, are they also applying chemicals or not? Just water?
it's a Brian question as well. I don't know that one.
Just curious whether they're fertilizing.
I don't think so. On the hydrogen, it's a lot of it's the mixed in there with the seed, and there's an other component. Anyways, yeah. Some kind of.
It's just another area you need to become more fluent in.
I'm doing my best, Kevin. There's a lot of this grass. I never know what to expect from you guys on the small questions, but maybe I'll start working on my grass. I should.
Down the right side. Let's overcover Brian.
Alan, any grass related questions?
I'll have some already.
Okay. Sorry.
Recommended Robertson, all those in favor, say aye. Adjourn, it's. No, I